Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this beautiful day. I'm Chamberlain Kusop.
Yes, it is a beautiful Wednesday morning. I am Kayode Kikele.
Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Wednesday already, wow. Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf.
In fact, some are wishing Friday. Oh no, Wednesday.
But those days of thank God it's Friday, is it ever going to come back?
Thank God it's Wednesday.
Thank God every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by TGIF.
Not for now.
Ever since this COVID came upon people, so a lot of things have changed. The mindsets have changed. How they approach things have changed. So they just need to go in their life. People have discovered certain things in themselves that they didn't know were there before. Yeah. And so they're latching onto it. Yeah. And they are moving on. And I say, why not? You don't have to live your life based on what people think or say. Sorry, just going on that. But
preacher.
Well, the thing is this, still on COVID, we're still in that era. The deputy governor of Bauchi State has tested positive to COVID. So they're taking certain measures and certain actions to see what exactly happened. So that press release was issued yesterday, which was signed by the senior special assistant to media from him. So yes, they did confirm to the general public that His Excellency Senator Bala Tella, Deputy Governor of Bauchi State, who is also the chairman, the State Task Force on COVID-19, was confirmed positive for COVID-19. So this confirmation, they say, was equal to a test carried out on him by the NCDC when he exhibited noticeable symptoms of the disease he contracted while discharging his responsibility as chairman of that. So expectedly, he will go into isolation, and then all the other processes will then go through. And so, following through from the briefing of the PTF on COVID-19 yesterday as well, the Lagos State government, lots of questions were being asked. After that, they said, look, okay, what's going to happen to the churches then? And the mosques, since they said it was going to be up to the states to determine. Don't forget, they said, well, the PTF, 20 can gather, but not more than 20. But if the churches have to open, it's up to them. So some of them asking questions, including us, to Lagos State officials who did say, well, the churches and the mosques may remain shut due to the rising number of coronavirus cases in the country. And then they did also say that that's a state commissioner there saying, well, after that ministerial briefing, that look, we've seen the cases in Lagos, we've seen how the whole thing is panning out, so we may just see how we can keep things in this way and see what happens. So there'll be a lot of focus on not just Lagos, several other worship centers across the country. How will things play out?
Absolutely, and you understand that 60% of the cases we have in Nigeria, you find them in 20 local government areas. Yep. And majority of those local government areas are in Lagos. So you understand. And when you see the progression, truth is this, we said we wanted to flatten that curve. We have tried to reduce it as much as possible. So we had the lockdown, we had the ease of a lockdown. But as it stands right now, if you look at our cases across the weeks, we're actually doing worse than we did in previous times. And it's not necessarily because we're testing more, as it were. Yes, we're trying to increase our testing, but we've not really crossed the 2,000, 2,500 mark consistently. So when you look at those figures over time, and then you hear that worship centers are coming back, yes, there is that sense of people wanting to, gather together and worship. It is normal. In fact, it's part of life, as they say. But when you look at the other side, the cases, the fact that there might be children, for example. Schools are not opening, but you might find children at the worship center. So what happens? You can't exactly, do much in some sense. And how do you control who will be there at the worship centers? If you count how many worship centers we have in a local government in Lagos, in fact, just on a street, then imagine a local government in the whole of Lagos. So who will be there to ensure that these guidelines are followed? Less than 20 people. So it's understandable that the Lagos State government is saying, well, we might need to hold off on that for now. As far as we ensure there's a framework.
And don't forget, in spite of the fact that the 14th week we recorded 1,904, they say we haven't peaked yet. We haven't peaked yet, let alone talking about flattening the curve. We're still in it.
The figures are most certainly scary. Again, I would say this, that the reason this is of concern to us largely is because there is no cap on COVID-19 for now. No treatment for the disease itself. There is just enough treatment to manage the symptoms. And so that is why the concern has to be really huge, because there are also people who have vulnerable health status that don't even know that they have such vulnerable health status. You know, when the news broke that Lagos state government said they're not opening the churches and mosques yesterday, a friend of mine was excited about that. Very, very devout, Christian and all of that. But the person said, just as Coyote said, let's say, okay, fine, children are not susceptible to it because of their immune system and all of that. But imagine, first of all, how do you manage social distancing between children? Secondly, let's imagine that the children actually go home. They're okay. They don't express any symptoms, so they are asymptomatic. They go to a grandma who, before you know what is happening, the grandma unfortunately greets another grandma in the next house, and before you know what is happening, it's actually getting a lot worse. That's one angle that I want to look at that one, and it is something that is of concern to us. So, well, it is gratifying to know that at least each of the states are now taking responsibility on their own to ensure that their citizens are safe. That is gratifying to note. However, let it be a responsibility that every one of us will take. That phrase, take responsibility, or to use Chamberlain's addition, take more responsibility. I think it now behoves on us. The PTF has said that as far as they are concerned, it is the states now that have to play a lead role. NMA is very, very cautious, but then the individuals, we individuals ourselves, what's our role? It's huge. Mark.
Well, I don't blame the churches and the mosques for asking their places of worship to be open. For the past couple of months now, I have worshipped from home. Interestingly, I have worshipped watching a church in Lagos, worshipping with the Holy Cross Cathedral, with the Archbishop of Lagos, Alfred Adewale Martins, officiating at Mass on Sundays. And I know just how much it has been, for a lot of churches around the country and even around the world, even mosques as well, to continue to do prayers with no congregants, with nobody in the places of worship, little or no congregants, as it would seem. And I remember that this Sunday, he had already spoken up before now about how he wants the Lagos State government to consider or government, not just Lagos State government, I think governments across the country to consider, reopening places of worship for churches. That if markets are open, and it would seem that economic places of economic activity are already getting open, why not the churches? And according to him, they have already sent out some guidelines. The churches themselves are producing some guidelines to the state government to say, this is what we can do, this is what we intend to do. And now, to be very honest, I do not want to comment on that specific instance. But what I do know is that the Lagos State government bears responsibility for, Lagos State. And they have a huge burden of the disease. So if you look at a number of states who have decided that they're not going to open places of worship just yet, Lagos and Kaduna seem to be high up on the list. Ogun State has also been restricting movement and even places of worship, yes, even some economic activity, because they will tell you, there's a curfew from this time to this time, despite what the federal government has said in terms of easing of lockdown. I think that some states tend to appreciate the dilemma of that COVID-19 presents more than some other states, because some states carry the burden more than others. And so I would say that we should go slow and easy. We should go, because I think at the end of the day, it will still depend heavily on the level of confidence that people will have in churches. You want me to be very honest with you? Even if churches open tomorrow, I'm not going to go. I'm going to still be worshiping from my house until a time that I feel confident enough, I feel safe enough with my family to be able to attend church. So, that is certainly going to be my own stance. In this instance, I will continue to ask that the government's dialogue, the state government, that is, dialogue with faith leaders and hold them really responsible if they're going to ease, whatever is going to happen in worship centers, because then churches and mosques will have to be responsible in that regard. A number of churches I know and mosques have already opened in some parts of the state. Here in Nasarawa, not too far from Abuja, some churches have opened, and I've spoken to a number of friends. How are you guys doing it? How are you handling overflows? It's still a challenge. It is a big challenge, and I know that the leaders there constantly have to keep telling the people that, look, you cannot afford to let your guard down. See what is happening in Anambra State. The governor came out yesterday to say, look, we're threatening to close markets if you guys will not obey guidelines, or if you would continue to let your guard down. This is what we will have to do again. I don't think that we want to go down that route. If we can be patient, enough to let this thing, let us at least get somewhere reasonable. Because I know some people argue that churches are essential services, but there is a way these essential services can keep going on. I believe that, my family has been enriched by worshiping from home. I'd love to go to church. I'd love to worship with people. I'd love to socialize with them. But the idea behind it is the spirituality that goes with this. And I think that this is the time for, faith organizations to continue to emphasize that. I also know that, on the economic side of things, a lot of churches have been hard hit because some in the Catholic Church, for instance, the priests don't earn anything apart from, what is given, but freely of free will by the people. And I know that it's been very tough for a number of parishes to keep going on in spite of what is going on, especially really poor parishes. So yes, there is also that side to it, but I think that there are ways that this can be managed in such a way that we continue to place the health of our people at the forefront, and the spiritual health and well-being of our people at the forefront of whatever it is we're doing within this worship centers. Gentlemen.
Well, how this is affecting several other economies are part of what we will consider as we progress today on the program. But in just a moment, we'll be back to take a look at how the dailies, what do they reflect this time around. But for Lagos, here's the thinking.
Before the pronouncement, we are meeting, continuously with the religious leaders, with Safety Commission, discussing the possibility, which was ruled out at our last meeting. The issue of reopening cannot even come in place now, looking at the number accredited to Lagos in terms of affected patients in the state, in the country. So we ruled out the possibility of reopening. But now that the federal government made a pronouncement, as I said earlier, it is now left to the incident commander, Mr. Governor, to give further directives. But I believe that the figure, the increasing figure, is a major concern to government and also to the religious leaders.
Welcome back. Take a look at the dailies. The Guardian first. Lagos, Osun, Kwara retain ban on religious centers. Task force issues more guidelines, encourages worship at home. We've already been doing that, haven't we? Well, for those who may not have been, this encouragement is for you. 812 healthcare workers infected with COVID-19, says NCDC. And there were some messages also making the rounds about protests from some workers. NCDC, those who were collecting samples and some of those other things. Yesterday, we saw those materials that they were on strike. They've not been paid. Is it 30,000 naira monthly allowance? Yeah. But you see this is the big word on the front page here today. Why government's move against memo leakage may fail by experts. Officials must state why certain info can't be made public. So there you go. So they're going to be fighting against that now. Look, times have changed. So some people think the thinking too should change about some of these things you stamp classified and things like that. But, well, that's what it says here. And so PDP wants government to fix fuel price at 70 naira. Look, even the 21 naira per litre?
Not being complied with.
123 naira. That's the
No,
last
it's
one.
been further reduced.
So
Yes, I know.
121.
Down to 121.
No, but I've not seen any fuel station in Lagos reflecting that.
Which one of them reduced it to 123? That's my question.
Well, I checked yesterday, actually. I saw one mega station, NNPC 123.
Well,
But I didn't
NNPC
see-
and then who?
Well, that was where I went. So if I go to the others, then I can check. But as at yesterday, I tried to check the same one, but nah, they've not reflected that one yet. So that's what happens usually when the prices go up. Immediately they reflect it, they tell you. But when it goes down, oh no, we have to exhaust our old stock. Do you know how it is? Well, look at the back page, Guardian Sports. Raw promises to make Nigeria African champions again.
Okay.
Well, wait.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Make Nigeria champions again. So, yeah. And then FIFA tells FAs to use, in parentheses, common sense over players' Floyd's protest. Well, I don't know how they'll go about this.
That was a
but
tricky one, really.
Yeah.
Because FIFA didn't exactly say sanction or don't sanction, because, you know, football should not bring in political messages and all that. FIFA said use common sense. So you wonder, FIFA, what do you want us to do? You're putting us in a tricky situation. But seeing that, I mean, this is a major move. This is a major trend. You understand why teams will want to jump on it.
So, I mean, Liverpool, the players already they knelt the other day.
Yeah.
So, who knows what next?
Especially Sancho was also sanctioned for that. And people are saying, well, maybe you shouldn't have. But whew, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune this morning. The big story, churches, mosques may remain shut in Lagos. That's right. We discussed that earlier, and you must have listened to the commissioner speaking in that line. But you see what's happening in neighboring Oyo State. Oyo yet to relax ban on religious activities, because there was some controversy also about that. But this is official. 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. That's what we have in Oyo State. And I recall Mark will say from time to time, states should make this more stringent. I mean, when they relate to PTF's guidelines, the best they can do is even make it more stringent, not go below that bar. So you see, Oyo State's curfew is 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. We know that for the federal government's PTF, it is 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. But Oyo State is saying, well, we're taking 2 hours at night and 1 hour in the morning. So there you go.
Essentially, I guess it goes back to what the PTF said. Look, the states themselves have to be the ones to take action.
Take responsibility. And you see why mosques should not be opened now, Gumi. Churches, mosque services to last 1 hour. That's from the PTF. And 812 healthcare workers infected with COVID-19. You know, quite sad. And it raises the question about providing PPEs for all of them across hospitals in the country. It's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And you see the picture of the president and the AFDB head yesterday. They met, actually, and the president pledged his support for AFDB president. In addition, gets Buhari's support, says, my defense ran into 250 pages. That's on page 6. You wonder what that means?
I only saw 18 pages.
Well, apparently it's
So there's 250. Oh boy.
That must have been a lot of defense. A couple of other stories really on the front page. You see this one that's got me quite concerned. Courts to rule on mode of primaries on Monday. That's regarding Edo Guba. Yet again, we see the court deciding what happens in parties. And that has been, you know, a major talking point in recent times. How courts have to decide eventually what should just be inter-party issues. So we'll see what comes out of this one. It's on page 52 of the Nigerian Tribune. And President lends his word. Fish out Uniben students killers. Buhari tells police. Fans mourn as Majek Fashek dies at 57. It's on page 51.
Meanwhile, some were speculating, 71 and all of that.
Yes.
And I was joking, what?
Yes. But quickly, you see this one sports page. Raw backs Osimhen for Chelsea.
Well, there's more backing somewhere else on the back page of Vanguard, but you seem to have missed one crucial one there on the
No,
front
no, no. It's that same one, 18 and 250 pages. So good to see that the president is throwing his weight behind him. So we should need to reach out then, if they haven't, to other African leaders. Do what you have to do.
Yeah. And the president made one particularly interesting statement. That, look,
Yeah.
it didn't matter to me whether or not you were a PDP minister. You were qualified for it. You got the job.
That's the way it should be in this country, actually.
Yes,
It shouldn't
the way it
matter
got to be,
where
yes.
merit. If we focus on people getting things based on merit, you won't recognize the country again, I tell you.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that. Take it to the bank, in
Oh, I
fact.
saw that coming.
Which bank?
Okay, which bank? Sorry, which bank? Tell me which bank.
Let's go to the Vanguard newspaper, guys. And the Vanguard newspaper leads with Edo politics. Edo, how bid by APC governors for indirect primary failed. That's the lead. Baseki's absence at meeting weakened APC governors' push. We want to find out why on page 5 of the paper. Details of what Oshomole discussed with 7 APC governors. And there's an explanation why I wasn't at governor's meeting with Oshomole. That's by Obaseki. Again, the details are there on page 5. Court declines injunction on APC primary, fixes date for hearing. All of that, you'll find the details on page 5. Of course, you see that social distance greeting by the president of Nigeria with another president, this time of the African Development
I'll
Bank.
show you social distance hug afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got it in my locker.
I look forward to that. All right, right beside that picture, many northern VIPs were once Almajiri. That's according to Okorocha. What do you mean by that? Find that on page 13 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And right under that picture, FG orders investigation of Uniben students' gang rape, murder, abuse of minor.
Yeah.
That story is on page 6. Very, very disturbing, no doubt. Find the details on page 6 of the paper. On the back page is Vanguard Sports. Raw says, I'll make Eagles champions of Africa again. Says he moved to Nigeria from number 13 to 3 in Africa. Kudos. And of course, that's one you talked about again.
Somebody's blowing his trumpet, isn't
Well,
it?
if you don't blow it, you'll probably get rusted.
boy.
So, Raw wants Osimhen to move to EPL or Syria. Again, the details right there on the back page of Vanguard this morning.
Let's quickly look at leadership for you. Well, it's refreshing to listen to Pastor Chamberlain this morning. Don't know if he's going to open his church soon. Whatever you do, James, it has to observe social distancing. Nigeria rallies support for AFDB president. Additional, that's the lead headline on the front page of the leadership this morning. If we don't rally support for ours, or one of ours, who's going to do it for us? Especially when he's doing a fine job. I'll stand by you, PMB assures multilateral banks boss, says Nigerian government will work with other African leaders, stakeholders to ensure his re-election. Reps asked banks board to disregard call for fresh probe. That's also on the front page of the paper. DSS confirms alteration in Bielsa deputy governor's NYSC certificate. Yeah, the tribunal has asked him to present that certificate unfailingly, I think, sometime soon. You also see there that broadcast, the court orders Ojikalu's release from prison. It's there as well. Easing of lockdown, not end of COVID-19. Federal government wants. And you see at the bottom there, reggae icon, Majek Check. Guys, at 57, Nigerians mourn. We'll start with this game. Thankfully, we still have his music. Let's leave it there. Leadership newspapers.
Okay, take a look at the next one that we've got for you this morning and see what the paper reads today. There you go. It's the Daily Times and their big lead. FG releases guidelines for reopening of worship centers. Says church services, mosque prayers must not exceed 1 hour. Reveals that 812 health workers have been infected with COVID-19. Lagos, Kaduna, Oyo say worship centers remain shut. So it is a big theme, COVID-19 this morning. And then they also have that perspective of Nigeria will stand by you, Buhari tells AFDB president additional. So we're expected to do what we have to do, reaching out to all the others. And then we should be able to put our foot down. After all, we've got the highest shares in AFDB. So why shouldn't we get started? This is the first time anyway.
Yeah.
Nigeria is leading the AFDB. Africa is a very important sector in Africa's economy. So that is a look at some of the dailies here today, everybody. We will be back in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, talking about the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, on people. We do have Mr. Bukka Kyari joining us this morning. He's a former head of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. He's an economist. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning.
Well, we've seen several guidelines. The latest one, they still spoke about some of them yesterday. But if you could, I mean, having considered some of those, well, the reason why some say states cannot impose any further or varying this lockdown is because, look, there isn't just that stimulus package to get to certain people who actually should be getting this. But give us your impression of how the economy is playing out now, because there were several stimulus packages that were announced at the time. Did they make any impact? The jury is out there. But from your perspective, what do you think?
Yes, unfortunately, we are not, we do not have a culture of collecting our data as it happens. So the real data would be out much later. By then, it would be too late. However, just on an anecdotal basis, a lot has been shut down, especially in areas that I'm quite aware of, which is the Lagos and vicinity. Industries are closed, hotels, restaurants. So when you look at it, a good deal of the service sector has been down. Of course, I am not quite sure how agri will be affected since the rains have just commenced. But there are some strategic things that need to happen, which is basically injection of the stimulus package into areas that would boost growth. For example, agri is one of such areas. But the key thing is that we do not have enough data to really tell us what's exactly happening with the economy in terms of the palliatives affecting people that are at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, Nigeria is the country with the largest number of extremely poor people. That is, that people that are earning less than the equivalent of about 700 naira per day. We have over 88 million of such people, individuals. And I will bet you that half of those people have to do something every day to put food on the table. Now, the effect of that is that we need to reach out to them quite quickly in terms of the palliatives that need to reach them. However, we do not have the mechanisms in place for doing that. I mean, mobile phones could be one, but then what happens to the person in the rural area? I have heard a lot of things being discussed about bank accounts. Bank accounts are people that have walk-in formal or semi-formal areas. There are millions and millions of people that do not, that are even intimidated to walk into a bank, let alone have bank accounts. So those are the areas we need to look at. The other thing is that the lifting of the restrictions, I know, is done because the economic hardship is really biting hard. And therefore, one has to do something to ensure that people can go out and earn a living. But the important thing is that I know in Japan, they have what they call avoid 3 Cs. Japan, with a population of 120 million, which let's say is less than half, people are predicting dire consequences for Japan. But today, Japan's death rate on COVID-19 is extremely low compared to the population. Confirmed cases are declining. And the reason is very simple. They have a strategy of saying avoid 3 Cs. One is closed spaces. 2, crowded places. 3, close contact with people, basically social distancing in another terminology. Now, what they are saying is that go about, do whatever you need to do, but have the discipline of observing that. Now, hopefully, that we will be collecting data as we allow people to start going out, going to the houses of worship, mosques, churches, and doing a few things. But we need to also keep an eye on the new cases, because right now it's not going down. It's somewhere around 300. We have had one incident of about 500 cases in a day, but so far it is around 320, 330. If it remains flat or it starts declining, so be it. It's great. If it starts upticking, then we need to pay particular attention to having a strategy where communication needs to be given to people so that they understand that this thing is here to stay.
Okay. Now, just a quick one on your discussion on data. Well, of course, you are aware that PTF COVID-19 also said that they are going to rely on data and science, to further some of the decisions they have to take. But, a lot of questions were asked about data on Monday when this whole new phase was to begin. And the question is, which data exactly are we talking about? Because the aviation minister, for instance, will tell you that, look, we have full data of our sector. The banking sector will also say that they have full data of the number of accounts and all of that. So I know that NBS, beg your pardon, is going around gathering all kinds of data. I know that there is deficiency of data, but specifically speaking, in order to fight the economic battles that COVID-19 has brought, what kind of data do we need? You have also said that we need to begin to gather this data. Who should be gathering this data?
Right. So the data that the PTF is relying on is entirely different. They don't really particularly care about the economic data per se. They are looking at the data of how many people, how many tests have been done, how many are infected, et cetera, deaths, and so on and so forth. To that, I would say, yes, they have data. And now, the problem is that even the confirmed cases they are having, for X number of tests, a certain percentage turn out to be positive. I think in the case of Nigeria, it is somewhere around 10% or thereabouts. It may have gone down since the number of tests have started going up now. But we need to do more testing to actually ensure that we closed the door before the fox got in, kind of. But on the economic data, yeah, NBS is the source of most, all of our data that officially comes out from the government. Now, NBS's data is a bit delayed. I mean, the data for the month of May will not be released until probably towards the end of June. That's what I mean by data that comes out a little bit late is not quite the same as data that you get fresh on a daily basis or weekly basis. Now, that's what I mean by having the issue of dealing with data that has lagged behind. It's like you're driving, looking at the rear view mirror. When you continuously look at the rear view mirror, meanwhile you're going up forward, you will have no idea where you are headed. Now, essentially, that data that we need for economic purpose is to, share the data. For example, aviation. How many commercial flights have taken off and landed in Nigeria in the last 1 month? 0. So we do have the data. That basically means that millions and millions of, billions of naira is being lost. But it is not just the planes taking off and landing that is the key data. There are a lot of activities at the airports. Those are also economic activities. People that go in, eat there, drink there, whatever, those are all economic activities that add to the GDP. Now, when that is not happening for a considerable period of time, it has its effect. And those are the effects that we're seeing in the hardships that people have. Now, how then do you alleviate that? Of course, you then say, okay, damn the consequences, let's open the economy and let's push. But that may also be counterproductive because health comes first. Health before wealth. Now, the critical piece there then is that how do we balance it? And it has to be done with a lot of care, caution, and people must be made aware of what they must do if they have to go out and interact. How many people should there be in any gathering, etc., etc. Because at the end of the day, the best thing that we can do for our citizens is to safeguard their health, and then the wealth component comes later. So essentially, it is a situation of you do it, you're damned, you don't do it, you're damned. But we have to navigate through those difficult choices, and I hope that the easing of restriction will give a little boost to the economy, but at the same time, we need to still stay on giving out that clear message about COVID-19 so that people are aware and people take it to heart and change our previous habits such that the new habit or the new normal that has evolved, such as not shaking hands or not hugging or whatever, need to be understood by people. And we're doing that as a result of the savings of lives rather than anything else. There is really no other underlying motive other than to safeguard the lives of the citizens of Nigeria.
Now, listening to the PTF yesterday, the coordinator had to say that COVID-19 is not over, especially because we've moved into another phase and there's a tendency for people to think, oh, thankfully, we've left that behind, so let's move on. By the way, I even drove around, tried to look at people complying with wearing their face masks, for example, and, the physical distancing. And what I saw was quite shocking because it appeared as though a lot of people have thought or are thinking we've left the worst behind. But looking at the data we have, which you say the PTF is looking at, for example, 75% of the current confirmed cases, that's about 7,500, is as a result of community transmission. You see that we've only tested over 65,000 of 200 million people. That is a huge gap. You see that 812 healthcare workers have been, infected, which is a challenge. We were talking about overwhelming our system such that, healthcare workers are also affected, the ones that are meant to be in the front lines. I can go on and on, over 40,000 pieces of PPEs purchased. When we have just about 40,000 doctors, imagine the nurses, and this is not something they can use over time. It's meant to be for a few times and then they change. So there's inadequacy in that extent. Lagos State is saying that they are bringing out guidelines before businesses can open. But when you look at the compliance on one hand and the stark reality of the data we have, how do you propose we handle having people to comply, to imbibe this, and opening businesses at the same time?
Yes, Lagos State at least is at the forefront, and of course, Lagos being the hotspot in the country. Go up north, I think the incident of wearing masks is much lower, well, apart from possibly Abuja. And the reason basically is that one, it may be lack of those PPEs, but at the same time, it may also be because the communication of how serious and urgent, how serious and dangerous this virus is. Exactly the case that PTF has always been constantly repeating. That is that the virus is here, and unless such a time after a vaccine is discovered, by the way, even if a vaccine is discovered, we may be way behind the queue. Look at the number of tests we are doing. It's much smaller than what you would call for a country the population of Nigeria. Now, the luck we have is that I believe that this may actually be my own hypothesis. I believe that this virus followed the key travel routes across the globe. So Africa having about 2% of the global travel means that we were affected less by it because all of the cases, of course, are flown in from somewhere. And in our case, particularly in Nigeria, it is mainly from Europe and the US. And of course, it may be a few from China before we really knew that we had it. But most of it that had been identified and traced were specifically coming from Europe and the US. Now, the issue that we are faced with is, number one, we're lucky that the numbers are not as overwhelming as other countries of similar sizes. Two, we have a situation where we already are starting on a very bad note, which is that we have a poor and extremely poor healthcare system. So to inundate our healthcare system is very easy. All you need to do is say, we need 10,000 ICU beds. And I don't think Nigeria as a whole has that kind of number. And so the luck on our side is that the numbers are not as high as it is. And it continues to be trudging along in that flattened 300 or so per day number. But at the same time, the critical pieces of PPEs that our healthcare workers or the frontline workers need is also few and far between. One or two of the companies that I chair donated specifically to the healthcare workers, PPEs basically. And the reason that we felt it was an HMO and an insurance company. The HMO felt that this is something that is within that industry and we need to do something. And of course, the insurance company on our own did one thing, but also collectively through NIA, we also did something in alleviating the sufferings of our people. But the problem, though, is that it is a case of what we need to do early enough. Let's a bit.
So that Mr. Gary, if I could jump in there, that's where the concern really is, because look, some things that we've identified now. The SGF did say, while it was in the National Assembly, they didn't know that the health sector was this bad. They've identified that. The Minister of Labour in some fora was saying unemployment rates may hit 33.5% in 2020. Another point of identification. And then the Aviation Minister, in that brief, one of the briefings, says we lose 21 billion naira monthly. Now, they identified all of this, but they've not said, what are they going to do about some of these things specifically? So, from your perspective, I mean, looking at the big picture, because there'll be so many losses, job losses too, what should we be doing?
I think for now, one of the key things that on the monetary side, both on monetary and fiscal side, what we need to do is that the country's economy right now, there is really very little space on the fiscal side. That is, that if the government wants to spend money, the government doesn't have money, it has to borrow. Now, and we have seen the moves being made by the Minister of Finance and many other things that we're hearing. So the debt that Nigeria is incurring, both domestic and foreign, some of it are going to go into those, I would assume. Hopefully, it would go it needs to be spent very quickly, because without money circulating, the decline of economic activities will actually overwhelm the economy. And it needs to be done quick and in large amounts. So however it is done, whether it is going to be a domestic bond issues like the Sukuk, 150 billion Sukuk, unfortunately, in the case of Sukuk, which is an Islamic bond, it has to be borrowed and spent on what is going to be spent on. So in that case, unless it is specific to say that we're going to feed people with it, it's money that would go into infrastructure. But some of these
Mr. Kerry,
borrowing...
Just one moment. Maybe we could just be... Just one moment. We could just be giving ourselves excuses to borrow, if you don't mind me saying, from what you're saying now. Why do I say this? Because There are tremendous resources in Nigeria. You have said that so many times. If there is a need, what if there is a need to tweak some laws to jumpstart some things? For instance, you have spoken several times about the huge, tremendous mineral resources at the state levels. Isn't that some kind of low-hanging fruit that we can tweak some laws or find a way to jumpstart some activity in? That's so that, I mean, if we're able to get that done, I mean, it'll be quick money in the economy, wouldn't you say?
Correct, but those are not quick money. It requires equipment to buy. I mean, unless you're going to go and do artisanal mining, which is extremely dangerous, unregulated, and you may not even capture the data of what are the gold and topaz and zircon or whatever mineral that you're getting. How many and how much have you mined? Mining also requires a certain level of investment. It takes a certain amount of time. So there is a gestation period. I mean, if you get a mining license from the time, depending on the mineral, from the time you apply and get the license to the time you start producing, it could take 1.5 to 2 years. Now, it is a good business for people that have the resources. So not everybody can go in there. Now, meanwhile, agri is something that most people can do. In fact, majority of the employable or employed population in Nigeria are farmers. And that is something that can achieve two things. One is that at least we will produce to feed ourselves, but it also has a time lag, isn't it? Because if the rains start today, it would probably take you 2-3 months before you get a harvest. Now, all of those are things that require time, and let's invest in those. And even if we are going to borrow to invest, let's do so. But what happens tomorrow? There are 200 million mouths that need to be fed tomorrow. How do we do that? Now, some do have the means, and some even help their neighbors. But there are a lot more that cannot afford to even eat. So how do we address those? Those are the things that the government can. The worst thing that can happen is for government to print money, which literally is what some of the economies in the world are doing. US is printing money, basically. Over $6 trillion, $3 or $4 trillion in the financial and capital markets, and another $2 to $3 trillion in the fiscal space, where they are pumping palliatives, directly giving money to their citizens.
Okay. Mr. Kerry, just one moment. Now, you have talked about, what's pretty much central decisions. Is there a role for states, very, very quickly before we take a break, is there a role for states in all of these to jumpstart the economy and put quick money in the economy?
Now, the dire states of the states, no pun intended, is basically that we have identified that majority of our states are not even viable economic entities in the first place. This is basically a double whammy for them. They've been squeezed. IGR is going to go down considerably. In some cases, it may go down by 50, 60, if not 90%, because a place like Lagos, things have to happen before the government gets money. And meanwhile, they're still spending money, trying to do all the things that they need to do. So the reality is that we need to even rethink whether the states, as they are constituted now, are viable economic entities. If they are not, is it possible to have what I would call a serious conversation about Nigeria, to have maybe 6 zones or whatever the number is, but reduce it to a meaningful number? That way, at least your recurrent expenditure is down. There is also economic viability of minerals and agri and comparative areas of comparative advantages in those 6 you're political zones. I believe that NESG has a document regarding this political zones viability, economic viabilities.
I think we'll have a second look at that then.
Right, right.
All right, so
very serious. It's only when you are down that you need to be creative.
Well, we just have to keep doing what we have to do, don't we? Well, we do thank you for talking to us this morning, Mr. Booker Carey, former chairman of the NESG.
Thank you.
All right, then we're back in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. I know we're joined by Dr. Oladapo Ashinyobi, who is a public health physician. He's also a sustainable development consultant. Thank you for joining us this morning on the program. Well, you know, the thing about this is public health, epidemiologists, GPs, there's so many things going through several people's minds, but all of this lockdown, I know they've talked about economic consideration, livelihood, putting all of those in the picture before taking our decision. And perhaps health experts like yourself, you always have certain views which you think should be the case. But considering how we're approaching some of these things, what's going through your mind?
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Actually, in the field of public health, health has three dimensions: physical, social, mental. And those three have to be in sync for you to have the optimal state of health, both for individuals and community. Now, looking at the physical one, those are the figures. We won't be afraid. We will say it's rising. So why are we relaxing the lockdown? However, let's put that figures into perspective. Our demographic dynamic is kind of helping us. Most of our population is young. Our life expectancy is less than 60 years. And we know that COVID has the worst impact on the elderly and those who have pre-existing conditions. And most elderly people have it. So we really don't have too many of that. I mean, less than 10% of our population is over 60. So even if it's going to have any effect, we would have seen it by now. We can hide illness in the home, but we cannot hide dead bodies. So if people were dying in droves, the cemetery and those who are buried, like it has happened in some other points and cities in Nigeria, would have shown it. And even in those cities, if you follow the trend, you see that most people who died were elderly. So our demographic dynamics is different from that of Europe, where you have or America or first world countries, where you have a lot of elderly people, and so people die in homes, in elderly people's home, and then the death rate is very high. So clearly, it's not having that kind of effect in Africa. So settled, physical. Now, you have to now look at the social and the mental. The social is our way of life, which is our economy, our relationship, our religion, our parties, everything that makes us. And if that is not balanced with the physical, then there is a mental component that we will all be dealing with. And so it's a tough balance, but if you want to make a situation, you want to make a decision, you have to put all this into perspective and say, okay, if you're really not that dying, so many people will be infected because it's a very infected disease, but it's not likely going to kill many the way we see in other times. So why remain in a lockdown? So I think it is fair enough that if you put it on a scale, you will tilt towards less, not over-focus on the numbers alone of the infected. I mean, if you see the numbers itself, those who are in this are just increasing too. So clearly, something is working, both naturally and what we did. And secondly, socially, we now have to look at that aspect and prepare for the new normal, as what everybody wants to call it.
But you know, let me ask you this. When you speak about the new normal, I mean, my colleagues have highlighted this as well, because what we see out there it's actually different from some of the measures that they announced and they expect people to abide by. Because look, there are those who just believe, look, to them, it's business as usual. So all of those other processes, you just literally see that they are just doing certain things to fulfill all righteousness. Some even tell you outrightly, you think I really believe some of these things going on? So this is what reflects out there on the streets. So how can that be defined? How does that fit into the new normal which you speak about?
So there are many new normals. You see, it's not just one new normal. My normal as an individual, or my concern, or the concern of my group as a member of the society who are professionals will be different from the concern of the ordinary man on the street. Will be different from somebody who is losing billions, millions, thousands every day, who will not really be affected by too much of the economic impact. Then it's also be different from those who feed daily, who, if they don't go out daily, something happens. Now, the belief in whether it is real or not is actually not out of place. Do you know why? When it comes to diseases that don't kill a lot of people somehow, some way, or not much, I mean, the effect is not much, it's challenging for professionals like us to let them understand. For example, let me use immunization as an example. So you beg people to go and get immunization, and they look, this child is okay. I mean, their mindset is only when someone is sick, that's when the child needs to be injected, right? So you say, no, this one actually needs this injection not to be sick. And people like you was the first. Now, this same person, this same caregiver, you told last week or 3 weeks ago that the child is around, like, look, don't worry, let me go and attend to my social condition market, get there. Then the child gets ill and they run back. Can you please inject this child now? Do you see? So it's not something that people can really introspect properly and put into perspective. Prevention is better than cure, but prevention is not really appreciated. And that's why you see people still have diabetes. And everybody knows what the issue is. Don't smoke, don't drink, exercise, eat well. Then we do the opposite. Because, I mean, we are apparently healthy. Then when we have it, then we now start to take action. So it's understandable, not excusable. But there's not much you can do. Behavioral change is one of the most challenging things to achieve for people who are apparently healthy.
So when, I mean, the kind of, if I could use the term, vibes you get from the PTF and, you know, the task forces around states about these measures, now we've moved into another phase. And when you talked about our figures, our data, the fact that our fatality rate is not as high as, you know, you would expect or you have seen across other countries. But the challenge here is we have heard that we've not even gotten to the peak yet. And the big question is, what does the peak look like? Is it 2,000, cases a day? Is it 5,000 cases a day? We don't entirely know what that peak is. So don't you think it's a challenge? I mean, looking at the figures we have now to decide, rather than looking at what the possibility might be in the future and say, because we don't want to hit that, this is what we have to do.
All right. Now, if you look at the figures, there is what you call nominal figures. That means the exact thing you're looking at. But you also have to look at the percentages. So now, let's just, for the sake of discussion, say we have 500,000 cases. You see, it will not change that we don't have many old people that the disease is likely going to impact, right? So the percentages will remain the same. The nominal figures will rise. On the average, we're seeing between 2 to 3% death rate, right? So even if you have 500,000 people, we will still be seeing between 2 to 3% death rate. Though the figures will rise, however, you mentioned something, you said the expected number of deaths. Actually, the expected number of deaths, if you look at our demographic, is what we are getting. As in, we do not have too many people who will be susceptible to be very ill and dying. Because that's what resonates in the mind of people. People who get the disease and don't have symptoms or get a mild form, which is the majority, don't resonate in the mind of people. And so that is why you get that seemingly cure for the disease. People say it works. I mean, if 8 out of 10 people are going to be okay, right? Now, out of those 8 out of 10, somebody takes garlic, then another person takes another drug, and another person takes another drug, and they were all going to be well anyway, then everybody will say that's what makes it work. Then you have in that same mix, set of people who have it will be really afraid, do follow government regulation and still get better. So at the end of the day, it doesn't resonate that much. It is the small 3 to 5% that resonates in the mind of people.
Okay,
and
let me just add this. Let me just add this, I mean, to that trail of thought. Now, with more people getting infected means some possible overwhelming of our healthcare system because they will need to get care. And that's a possibility that even those at the forefront, the healthcare workers, might also be affected. At this point, we have 812 of them infected. We don't know what will happen if we have more cases on a daily basis. That means we need to purchase more PPEs, as it were, basically to beef up our defense line. So yes, the fatality, of which people are even saying at the early stages, you probably have low fatalities, and eventually this might increase. So even though that is the case now, there are other areas that this would affect majorly. So looking at that also, how do you factor that in?
Well, don't forget that the health system is a mirror of the whole system and the whole nation. So if we don't have too many old people in the whole community, then you will not have too many old health workers. So they're likely going to be young people. And so they're also going to fall into the range of most of them, 8 out of 10, who might get infected inadvertently or at their job and even at their home. Don't forget that we're now in community transmission. So it doesn't mean that health workers are all going to be infected at work. They will actually have been infected at home and bring it to work, or vice versa, because we're in community transmission. But most of them will show no symptoms. Most of them who may not get tested will still be okay, and then we move forward. Now, for those, but that does not remove the responsibility of government to protect them at work. Now, that does not remove their own responsibility to follow the general public health advisory at home. Hand washing, social distancing, and all that. That may not be at work. Please follow that at home. But when you come to work, it is not the responsibility of government. It's okay, fine. If I don't have these many cases, and they're going to come to you, whether mostly asymptomatically and few be symptomatic, you still need to be protected at work using the minimum infection prevention control procedure, i.e. PPE, hand washing, social distancing, waste management, health education, and all what's not. So it doesn't remove that responsibility. And then government must think proactively. How well can we manage this, thinking of the new normal of rising number of cases and what we can do to mitigate the impact on the health system, the health worker. Thank you.
And speaking about that, continuation on that, when the WHO did say that they were halting or suggest some implications about hydroxychloroquine, and then the NAFDAC did say here, look, our trials will continue. And then you hear the NCDC reviewing their own protocol. Well, you no longer have to test negative twice. I think they say if it's once, yes, you can be off. And then several other, now they talk about the antibiotics component. So from your experience, from what you've seen relating with people, does it impact on their behavior in terms of believability or how they adapt to this novel coronavirus?
Well, it's only when people see that they believe, unfortunately. So you're not likely going to see because most people, even if they are infected, will be okay. So it's hard to believe. Now, I'll tell you a funny story. I know of somebody who was infected. And because of his infection, he disclosed to a lot of people, right? He sent out messages and videos, and people saw it, and they were like, wow, this is real, because they know this person. Right on the very street where this happened, the elderly people got up and started chasing the young boys on the street playing football. That, can you not see this our respected person is infected? Go into the home. So because they saw somebody they could relate with get infected, the elderly ones took it upon themselves to ensure social distancing. And the perception among that community has changed a bit just because they stopped. So that is what makes people understand that it is real. Now we have many more communities that don't still believe it's real because they don't have the personal experience. But the more the disease spreads, many more personal stories will be told, and many more will not be told. And that will change the behavior of some people. And so I believe going forward, Nigerians are not that irresponsible. It's just challenging to take behavioral change to people when they have not seen the impact and they are apparently well.
Okay, now let me bring in this perspective, this component of it, because part of what I was trying to say is that those messaging coming from the appropriate bodies in this case, albeit they seem conflicting. The WHO says certain things about hydroxychloroquine. NAFDAC says, well, we're going to continue here because, I mean, over here, we know how chloroquine, malaria experiences have also shown to be certain cases. I'm talking about consistency or otherwise, because how people interpret those messages, it's different from how they put out these messages, because they already have a book. They could say a thing or two about COVID-19 when it started, and then they discover new things. So having to internalize all of that and unlearn what they already know before could be a challenge for certain people who already made up their minds about certain things. So I'm asking you now, does that influence or affect the way people believe and respond to some of these guidelines, or even to some of the expectations that public health physicians will have of them?
Okay, now you have to put all this into a perspective of why they happen and why those decisions were taken. So there is an international study for chloroquine, and WHO stopped it halfway because some studies say it is dangerous. But you have to be a professional to understand those things very well. And that's why professionals must come up and talk about it a bit so that people will get a community understanding of it. So they stopped the trial because the trial was done in people who are very ill. And along the way, they found out that chloroquine would likely affect their heart condition and cause more damage. So they couldn't continue. So get this very well. Elderly people who are very ill. And these people, I mean, let's assume they don't take chloroquine. They're really very ill anyway. So it's most likely they'll have more problems. So if you use chloroquine that may cause any type of small problem, is likely going to just add to that. So some people are saying you chose the wrong subject. You should have used the right subject. Now, my own view and how I see it is this, that it's challenging for WHO to pick people who are mildly okay or who are asymptomatic. You know why? For me, you'll be addressing the wrong problem, because people who are mildly okay or okay, if you give them chloroquine, somebody else might not argue, well, they were going to get better anyway. And really, the real challenge is we don't want people to die. So maybe that was why they picked those who are really ill and hope that chloroquine will salvage them. But that is an academic discourse between two schools of thought, that use it for those who are okay, and some are like using for those who are very bad. And so the academic world will sort themselves out. But they could not have seen that it had some effect that they didn't want on the study subject and continued. It will be seriously unprofessional and unethical. Now, what should the public understand from that? That, let's say from Nigeria, so NAFDAC say we should continue. And we're likely going to now decide, how do we want to continue? Now, should we divide our patient selection to those who are very ill, which will likely mean we will repeat what WHO is doing, or mix the match and then see what the results will come to. Now, if the result shows that it will be of significant difference, then we may adopt it. Every nation has its own population, its own people, and so they should conduct their own research and protect their own by domesticating that research.
Okay,
So,
well,
for the public,
yeah.
on this,
You
research
know,
is going on. Until
okay.
everybody has evidence that
Let,
fits their purpose,
let me bring in this.
that and we're watching.
Would you, because I mean, from what we see out there, because we just ask questions of people different times to see how do the messaging from the relevant bodies reflect, how do they internalize all of those messaging. Even if you watch from a distance, it does appear, perhaps in addition to interacting with people, it does appear as though once they hit the streets, economic considerations take preeminence over and above any health consideration whatsoever. Do you think that's the case?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it's difficult to tell people not to leave. I mean, the alternative is tell them stay at home, stay hungry and die. Now, when they go out to earn a living, now the message is that you should earn a living, but please be careful. We should keep hammering those messages. We should not be deterred by hammering them. However, I think we should change our approach. And what I mean by that is, I think the messaging should come from the community leaders who understand, with a lot of them who understand how to participate in health mobilization in a bottom-up approach. So let's say we recruit people who they respect as religious leaders, as those who will carry on this message. So when they come to the mosque, right, the imam says, you don't have your mask, you don't come in. Then he puts it as part of his messaging. It rings better. When they go to the market and the head of the market union, they call themselves, look, it is mandatory we all have a mask, and then we have the places around the market that they themselves actually provide. It's not the government bringing it, they provide it. So they will insist, when you come to the market, wash your hands at different shops, maybe every 10 or 30.
Add just one more thing before. Okay, so sorry to jump in. We're just trying to lump in a couple of more things before we wrap up. You know, there's so many perspectives actually on this kind of matter. I'm just trying to see how to phrase this question such that, because yes, when I heard you say yes or no, I thought, is that the politician in you saying yes or no? But yes, it's a public health thing and it needs to be addressed as such. But these kind of messaging, for instance, from what you've seen, what has changed in people? Has it helped people stop self-medicating? So those kind of behavioral changes are what we're looking to see, if it's changed, if it's going to be a new normal for them. But for instance now, when... Yeah, go ahead.
No, finish your question.
Because I was just wondering, because if you look at how there's a lot of focus on prevention, wearing of face masks, how to keep social distancing, but are we focusing enough on what to do when you exhibit one or two symptoms on those NCDC suspected cases? If I've got a little flu, malaria, because almost anything, people say it may be symptoms of COVID. Are we focusing on all of those, boosting your immune system, and are people relating with that as much as the social distancing concept and the rest of them?
Well, the social distance, because you know it's challenging to keep because of our socio-economic makeup. That's why you have masks to be a source control of infection. So if you cough or sneeze, you're going to cough or sneeze inside the mask. So that's source control. However, moving beyond that, we should still say all the other things. We should not remove them. Now, the second one is, how do we behave? What should we do when we have people have some symptoms that is COVID-like? We should behave according to the health advice. Meaning, that means if you are ill, then do more social distancing. Stay at home more. Don't go to the health facility, call them, have somebody call them, relate with a professional, and they will tell you what to do. Look, because of COVID, it's not going to change that we still have more people with cough and catarrh the way we used to have. The rainy seasons have come, and things that have to do with rainy season will also come, like more diarrhea diseases because of our dirty environment, our environmental sanitation is not that good. So we will still have more diarrhea disease now. Disease associated with rain will come. And
all right. Well,
symptoms are.
I guess what we'll do. Okay, I'm afraid we need to anchor at that point. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this morning. Well, we'll be back in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. Yes, we're focusing on the agri sector, which Mr. Kerry did mention in passing in terms of how they've been impacted. They said, well, I don't know how much of that impact is in that sector. Well, we do have someone to shed some light on that. Aminu Goronyo, who is the president, Nigerian Rice Farmers Association. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the program. So, some days ago, we had some farmers who did say, COVID is really doing them good. That was their word. How about you? Can you say the same thing? How has it impacted on your value chain?
Well, I think those farmers that really said so, they have their reasons for saying that. And generally, and particularly to Rice Farmers Association and Rice Farmers, COVID-19 really does not stop us from the normal practices of what we have been doing in our farms.
So what kind of impact? Has it impacted negatively or positively on that sector?
Well, there are so many faces to the impact of the COVID-19. In the first place, before COVID-19, there are agitations by the federal government that everybody should quickly venture into agriculture. There were so many policies also of this government on agriculture, starting from the slogan that we must go back to agriculture, coming to we must grow what we eat, and also refusal to issue forex to those people that import food into the country, and then later border closure. All these processes, when they were taking place, Nigerians thought it was just a mere saying, not knowing that there are the steps that will help this country. So immediately the arrival of COVID-19, Nigerians now knew that we have no other country around us or across the globe that if we didn't grow what we eat, they will supply us with food. Every Nigerian today is aware that it's we that will produce what we eat. And for that reason, COVID-19 compelled virtually, particularly the youth, to go back to the farm. So for that reason, COVID-19 is really a blessing to Nigeria because it has compelled our youth and Nigerians as a whole to move back to agriculture, to move back to their lands. Every morning in our sector or under our association, we receive calls across the country that they want to join Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria because they want to become farmers. So if you look at this, we can say COVID-19 is a blessing to Nigeria because it has compelled virtually Nigerians to move back to agriculture, which is the sector that everybody knows that it can accommodate Nigerians in terms of job creation, wealth creation, and even food security.
Now,
So to me and to our farmers, that is why they are saying COVID-19 is a blessing, because they are now back to farm. They are farming what they eat, and they don't need to go to the local market and use their own money that they are supposed to save to buy food today. Most of them are growing what they are eating.
right.
So
You know, I imagine a lot of people watching now thinking, how can I be a member so I can also smile to the bank? But I was looking at MBS's, price watch, latest price watch, and I realized that the price of rice increased month on month from between 4 to 9%. That's for local rice, especially. And, especially now, also that a lot of people's earnings have dropped. We're really hoping that, our local rice will come to the rescue and will be affordable in some sense. But apparently, the prices increase. So in that light also, as much as you're smiling to the bank, there are some people that are not smiling to the market. So how do you try to balance that?
COVID-19 is just 2-3 months old in Nigeria or across the globe. And those people that move to the farms, they are in a big number in their groves. And cropping season is between 120 days to maximum 160 days. So I will urge Nigerians to exercise patience. Immediately we arrive at the harvesting period, the prices of commodities will definitely come down, because so many people, as I said earlier, has ventured into agriculture. And I hope and pray that the capable millers we have around us and the number of mills we have in the country will be able to mill enough rice that will be sufficient to everybody. And I assured you, prices definitely will come down to the affordable rate.
In fact, let's even talk about that now before we even go to the next question. Why are prices even usually high for locally produced rice in the first place?
Well, maybe it may not be unconnected with the processes of cultivating our farms. What we do in Nigeria in terms of agriculture, 80-90% is not mechanized. It's manually being operated. And for that, farmers are getting it so difficult, to make a kind of a big profit out of their businesses, particularly before 2015. Farmers are getting it so difficult to make profit out of their business because it's hard to even break even. But from 2015 to date, those farmers are really making profit out of their business because they are getting support from central bank through the Anchor Borrower Program. And definitely prices will be coming down in no distant time. As if you could remember, before 2015 and even late 2015, a bag of rice was being sold at between 16, 17, 18, in fact up to 22,000. But from 2016 to 2019, the bag of milled rice that is milled in Nigeria grown in Nigeria, I mean, and milled in Nigeria, it was being sold at between 13, 14 thousand naira. Why the prices are going up now is because of this lockdown that virtually people are unnecessarily being panicked about it. You see people rushing to the market to be buying food to stock for 1 month, 2 months, and that is why the prices of the food items are going up. But
Is it your members?
after this panic, the price will still come down.
Is it your members then that are profiteering? Because look, this is what it is. Do you have that conversation amongst yourselves concerning how much a bag of rice should sell?
Yeah, of course we have that conversation between the Central Bank of Nigeria, the rice millers in Nigeria, and also rice farmers. We have a platform that we do meet and discuss about how the price of this commodity should be. And I know the last time we met at Central Bank, we all agreed that a bag of paddy should not be more than between 9 to 10,000. And then a bag of also milled rice should not be more than 14,000 at the factory. And then also a bag of rice should not be more than 16 naira in the hands of dealers. So there is that synergy, and we still have time to meet and see and discuss on how best we can bring down the price of this commodity so that it will be affordable, it will be available and also affordable to virtually all Nigerians.
What is the price of a bag now? What is the price of a bag of local rice now? I mean, you said it's supposed to be 16,000 naira, but what is the price now in Nigeria from your members?
Well, we the farmers, we don't sell milled rice, we sell paddy. And up till today, the bag of paddy in our hands is not more than that 10,000, 10,500, maximum 11,000. And I'm sure that for millers, despite the fact that there are so many challenges around the millers, I don't think that milled rice is more than between 15 to 16,000 up till today.
But are you aware, I don't know what your, one moment, I'm not sure you are aware what the market price is now, because most certainly the average price of rice in the market now is between 20 and 25,000 naira. If you find out that that is true, is it something you are willing to discuss with your members to ensure that the prices at which they release it to the retailers and the wholesalers is low enough so that they can sell at the price you are recommending?
Well, as I said, I still maintain that millers are not really selling more than the agreed price with the central bank, the integrated rice millers. But remember that there are people who decided to venture into rice business who are not millers, who will just pick their bags, go to the market, brand it with a name, buy local rice, package it, and bring it to the market and sell at any given price. But the integrated rice millers, who are under a platform, working with the central bank, up till tomorrow, they are still selling at that agreed price with the central bank. So those that are selling more than that in the market are not really under the platform of or the association that are working with the central bank.
Now, speak to this as well. There is also, just one moment. There is also this allegation on the streets, because in the rice value chain is transportation. Now, in the whole process of this lockdown, food items, including rice, is one of those that are supposed to be able to move freely. Is there any difficulty that your members, that you or your members of your association have in moving these things across the states that could have been responsible for the hike in price?
Well, you know, we are farmers. We are not millers. We don't move our item, our paddy from one state to another. Under the Anko Borrower program, where farmer is being provided with virtually all the activities that is around his farming, which include land preparation, in fact, from start to finish, including the market. Our farmer doesn't even need now, under the Anko Borrower program, to even take their farm produce to local market to sell. The Anko Borrower program has provided market at the door of their farms. So we don't experience that problem at all. Maybe our colleagues who are millers, who move from one state to another, the midrise, maybe they're the ones that experience those kind of problems, but not farmers.
Well, there was some data that we came across from World Trade Markets talking about that we consume about 7 million tons per year of rice, and that we're currently producing 3.7 million tons. Could you reconcile that? Is that the case? And now that COVID is upon the world, are we going to experience any shortfall?
I think that figure and that data was a data of 2014-2015. Immediately after the Anko Borrower program started, Nigerian farmers moved from producing 2.5 to 3 metric tons, 3 million metric tons, 3 million metric tons per annum, to, as I'm talking to you, almost between 8 to 9 million metric tons. Because our consumption rate now is between 8 to 9 million metric tons per annum. And we are producing that between 8 to 11 million metric tons per annum, because we have two major cropping seasons, wet and dry season. In fact, in the northern part of the country, where we have long period of dry season, we even cultivate twice, because production cycle is 120 days. And if you have 8 months, you have 120 days in 8 months. So you'll be able to comfortably cultivate twice in the dry season, and then cultivate once, because we have short wet season period around the north. So you can do that. We can comfortably do 3 cropping seasons in a year in the north. And the same thing in the southern part of the country. Southern part of the country has a long period of wet season, ranging between 8 to 9 months, where they can comfortably do 2 cropping seasons in a wet season, and they have short period of dry season, where they can comfortably do 1 cropping season in the dry season. So you can see that we can do 3 cropping seasons comfortably in 12 months in Nigeria.
Okay.
Because of how we are structured. And in each production cycle, at least between 3 to 4 million metric tons is being produced.
All right. So we've got just one more item that we'd like you to speak to when we return in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, could you speak to this just as we wind down? It's not actually too clear. When you say we consume about between 8 to 9 million tons a year, how much, sorry, I beg your pardon, we produce 8 to 9 million tons per year. How much is our consumption per year, and which authority, do we get that detail from?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Let me go again. Can you hear? Okay, because we need to just see how we can put that across while we're trying to connect that. And then perhaps, if we can't, we also wanted to just find out. Okay, could you go ahead and speak to that if you can? How much do we consume per year?
Well, as I said earlier, our consumption rate is between 8 to 9 million metric tons per annum. And in terms of money, every morning, Nigerians consume minimum of 1.5 billion naira rice every day.
I'm talking about how much tons do we consume per year? Consumption and production, both data.
Between 8 to 9 million metric tons per annum.
Production.
8 to 9 million metric tons per annum.
So what about production?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I guess we're missing something here then. Okay, just one more thing then. How easy or difficult is it for people to get into that value chain if they want to invest in it?
Well, you know, the value chain is enormous. It consists of production, processing, packaging, marketing, input supply, land preparation business, and so many areas, steel production. There are so many areas in the value chain that Nigerians can quickly venture into it, either production, processing, marketing, packaging, input supply, and what have you. And the only thing you will do is under all these value chain operations, there are platforms, there are associations that are handling those value chain platforms. What you only do is to find out where those associations are located so that you'll be able to contact them and then ask on how you can easily join them. It's as
all right then.
ABCD to be.
Thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Among any of the.
Okay, maybe for those who are trying to get across, we'll tell them to get across to you. I think they want some investment clinic. But thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, so I don't know. I think I missed that part. I don't know why. He's talking about production and consumption. So I was just wondering what's going through my head on that.
Anyway, the investment clinic.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. What's going on with the emails? I think we have one.
Well, yeah, we have this one saying, please, we the NPAR beneficiaries. Now, this is a mail we've gotten over time, actually. A lot of people have sent this message to us saying that we the NPAR beneficiaries across states who have not been credited with March, April, and May stipends need you to lend us your voice. Goes on to say, we are really suffering untold hardship and hunger in this lockdown. We do our work, but are denied of 3 months stipend. We have channeled our complaints to NPAR Support Unit, but there has been no reply or assurance of payment since March till now, whereas our colleagues are getting theirs regularly. It goes on to say, this ugly trend started when payment was changed from NIBS to FIDA. Help us. We are many in this situation across the 36 states and the FCT, and we don't know what to do. And we cannot protest in this interstate lockdown due to COVID-19.
Wow, says we are many.
Wow.
Well, there you go. At least let me see if I can get that figure out of my head. So that is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Osal.
I'm Kaido Hikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day.
Well, farming is certainly more profitable than pasturing. So, Chamberlain, you might want to consider it again. Thank you. About Yusuf.